Group, we had some excitement in downtown Phoenix on Tuesday. We're not talking about the Super Bowl at all. There was a man scaling the tallest building in Phoenix.
Yeah, oh, is it the tallest building in Phoenix?
I think so. Someone told me that, so I'm just going to go with it.
Yeah, I was in the lobby of our hotel right around the corner.
And then you had to scale the building, which was pretty crazy.
And Alex, our trusty video guy, says there's a guy climbing a building. I'm like, you never know what's going to happen in a Super. I thought it was like some kind of promotion. He's got like all kinds of gear, and he's there's safety. No, it's just a guy who decided to climb a building.
Pro-life Spider-Man, he goes by.
Is that what his?
Yeah. So he got arrested.
He made it to the top though.
Didn't fall, which is good.
I thought Dave would be at the top of the building waiting with his notebook to interview the guy. I was kind of disappointed.
I was trying. I was right behind him trying to scale that building. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. We have some football to talk about. The game is inching closer and closer. It's crazy. It's only Tuesday. It feels like we've been in Phoenix now for about a month, but it's a lot of good stuff to talk about. Peter King from NBC Sports will join us in a little bit to give his take. Always enjoy talking to Peter. He has that national perspective on our team in Philadelphia. So we'll get to Peter in a little bit, but we finally got to see the Eagles team hotel. Pretty swanky place. They're doing all right.
Yeah, the team hotel is it's a resort way out in the desert with about 4-mile entrance road with bomb sniffing dogs and all kinds of armed guards, and there's no guests in the hotel. The Eagles took over the place. Beautiful spot down in Tempe, golf resort, and they've got the place to themselves, which that's not been the case in previous years. That's new. The NFL is clearing out the hotel so the team can really just, you don't have to worry about signing autographs or being bothered in the lobby. You have the place to yourself. It helps everyone focus and on the task at hand.
I don't know. I thought a few of those reporters today were probably asking for autographs.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, it was. They're starting to get into like a normal week rhythm because the first few days at the Super Bowl, it's kind of crazy. And now it's like, all right, they're getting closer to normal practices, getting closer to an actual football game. And I think that starts really after media night.
Yeah.
Things kind of settle down a little bit.
Yeah, and it was good because today we had an hour with the players, 15 minutes with Nick. And the questions at media day are, like if you were a tree, what kind of, it's just like 90% of them are just dumbass questions by people that don't care about the Eagles and are just trying to, I don't know what they're trying to do. But as the week goes on, you get football questions. And I think more and more. And today, some of the guys are actually talking about the game.
Yeah, that was a nice little change. It's like the closer to the actual game, the more football questions we get. It was a good group of players.
Can I just tell everyone what kind of tree Grant Calcaterra would be when I asked him?
What would he have been?
I didn't ask.
I thought you had something clever.
No, I had nothing.
Okay.
I thought you'd have the punchline.
I'm too tired to come up with one. But it was a good group of Eagles. They had, obviously, Nick Sirianni had his press conference first, and then 10 players at podiums on Tuesday. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Jason Kelsey. Oh, no, this is opening night.
That's yesterday's.
I have the wrong one. I don't know.
There's 10 players.
There were 10 players. We talked to a few of them. We spent some time with the cornerbacks, Darius Slay and James Bradberry. It's pretty cool to talk to Slay, him being here at a Super Bowl. I asked him if he ever thought he'd get here, and he was trying to be very polite about his time in Detroit. It wasn't a very good team. I mean, they had a 11-5 season his second year,
right,
and then it kind of just disintegrated after that. He went to the playoffs twice. As a Lion, they were bouncing the wild card round both times. So I think any player, once they start getting, he's in year 10, you start to wonder, like, am I ever going to get a chance to play in this game? So it's cool to see him on the stage.
Yeah, and he's enjoying, he's relishing every minute. And I think they had to drag him away from his podium when the hour was up. He's a lot of fun, and he's got a personality that just kind of matches the event. He's just funny and loud and boisterous and kind of all the things that Super Bowl week is. But he's also all about football, and it's great to hear him talk about his relationship with James Bradberry. I talked to JB today about the same thing, and when I asked Slay how happy he was that Bradberry made All Pro, his face lit up, and he just said he was so. I said I should have made it too, but I think he they become really close, and they're so different. Bradberry's very serious and quiet, and obviously Slay's not, but he said that they've become good enough friends that they're planning to hang out during the off season, and just. So I think that definitely helps. And they didn't know each other.
Yeah, and you have to remember, too, it's not just those two. Like, CJ came in pretty late, too, and the whole secondary has become pretty close.
Yeah, no, that's true. And it's a really interesting thing about this defense, how when you think about it, Reddick was new, Bradberry was new, Jordan Davis was new, Kaiser White was new. And I think it all kind of blended together really quickly. And very well, obviously. I mean, by week 2, they were shutting down the Vikings. So I think the communication and the relationship between Slay and Bradberry is a big part of that.
Yeah, I agree. And they're two veterans, and people are going to follow their lead, and they've been so good too. And it's kind of like the flip side of having two elite receivers in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. It gives the offense such a clear advantage going into just about every game. Having two cornerbacks like that is really unique too. It's like the only team that can hang with the Eagles on either of those sides is the Eagles, and they don't have to play each other.
Well, they do in training camp,
and it helps. You
could tell right from the get-go that it was next level stuff when either of those guys, Devontae or AJ, was taking a rep against Bradberry or Slay. It was like, this is fun to watch. I mean, this is like they really, really battled. You can just see them all getting better. And here we are now. And, A.J. Brown is a Pro Bowler. Slay's a Pro Bowler. Bradberry's a second-team All-Pro. And Devontae had a 1,000-yard season. That doesn't happen too often.
Yeah, I think with Bradberry and Slay, they probably split votes for All-Pro and Pro Bowl.
Yeah, I would think so. I don't want to insert myself in the story, but I voted for Bradberry for second-team All-Pro over Slay. I thought he had a more consistent year.
Yeah, more consistent. I think that Slay's peaks are higher, and he has tougher jobs a lot of the time.
I would agree with that. But, I mean, Bradberry had a pick 6 and made a lot of big plays.
Both were very, very good.
Both were very good.
A little bit.
Yeah. But they both, look, they're both among the best. I thought the last month and a half, Slay wasn't at the same level. I thought he just kind of lagged a little bit, but he's been great in the postseason. But nobody's been throwing the ball against him either.
Yeah, well, that's because he's great. I think a lot. Well,
because they didn't have a quarterback Sunday because the Giants are the Giants. But obviously, that's going to be a huge matchup Sunday.
It will be, yeah. I finally found the list of guys that put at the podium. It was Bradberry, Slay, who we already mentioned, Fletcher Cox, T.J. Edwards, Dallas Goedert, Brandon Graham, Jalen Hurts, Lane Johnson, Jason Kelce, Devontae Smith. Jalen obviously had the biggest crowd. Yeah. Right there was Jason Kelce, though.
Yeah, he's really become, and obviously part of it is his brother, but he's become – he's an incredible interview.
When's the last time a center has gotten this much attention at a Super Bowl?
I would say never. I would say that's probably never happened.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm sure Jeff Saturday got a lot, but that was probably like, what's it like playing with Peyton,
Yeah, and Jeff Saturday as a player, was a terrific interview.
Yeah.
Great quote.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone ever asked him about replacing Frank Reich at that point. But, yeah, he's become a real – media celebrity, and I mean, everyone knows how well spoken he is from the podcast, even if you don't cover the team. And he loves it. He was after his media session. I was coming back from actually playing the piano down the hallway in the hotel, and
that's why I couldn't find you for a while.
I know, and Kelsey's just standing by the curtain where the players go in, just talking to a couple guys. He couldn't stop, and then he sees me. It's like he's been out there after an hour yesterday, and he was ready to keep going. And
it's amazing.
Yeah.
And you figure Jalen Hurts, it's not his favorite thing to do. And he had to do an hour yesterday, had to do another 45 minutes today, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And he's handled it really well. I've been impressed by how Jalen's handled it because he's doing it, and but he's not doing it begrudgingly. He's having fun with it, and I didn't know how he would handle that part of it because
I think that's
not his favorite thing.
Yeah, it's not his thing, but I think he's not saying a lot. He's not giving like these blockbuster quotes, but he's agreeable. I think he's enjoying the moment, and he's giving thoughtful answers to the extent that he ever does. Mm-hmm. Where I thought there was a chance he might really bottle up and get really even more withdrawn.
It's good for him though to show a little personality, especially on this stage, because this is like a chance for him to introduce himself to the NFL and to the football world, and I think he's really done that so far.
Yeah, and he doesn't shy away from any of the questions about how it's the first Super Bowl with 2 black quarterbacks. I heard him; he was asked that a couple times yesterday, and he gave really, he was engaged. He was engaged. He likes the topic. He really, he knows a lot of the history of black quarterbacks in the Super Bowl. He knows all about Doug Williams and obviously Donovan and that whole history. So, it's good to see him. He might be back here. Wouldn't shock me if he's back here maybe a couple times in his career. So, it's a good experience for him, and I've been impressed by him. He's 24.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
The poise is impressive.
Yeah, just the composure.
I want to go back to Slay real quick because I enjoyed so much talking to some of his teammates about him getting this chance. Bradberry was like, man, he's to me, he's a Hall of Famer. And for him to be in the league 10 years and finally get this chance, like, it's really cool. And Fletcher Cox has known Slay since Mississippi State. So, like, he's enjoying watching this whole process through Slay's eyes. It's fun, and it's a good reminder that you just never know in the NFL. Sometimes a guy will have some success early, and Slay kind of did. They were 11-5, I think, his second year, and you just think you'll get there.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just doesn't happen. I remember thinking that with Brent Selleck in 17. It was like he was the guy that year. It's like, get this guy in the game, get this guy a ring.
Yeah.
I feel like Slay's kind of this team's version of that.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, Selleck was different because he had spent his whole career here. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, he was on that 08 team that came here, lost in the NFC Championship game in Glendale, got robbed by the refs in that game. But, yeah, he's I think he's a guy everyone on the team roots for. There's something about Bradberry. He's got like a little sparkle in his eye, like, he's like he's always there's more there that he wants to say, but he's like, I'm not quite going to say that.
Yeah, he holds back a little bit.
Yeah, he did talk about his future, and he doesn't shy away like a lot of guys. Oh, I'm not talking about that. I'm not thinking about the contract. I'm not thinking about free agency. He's like, he talks about it. He's open about it. Look, it's out there. Everyone knows these guys are free agents. Everyone knows the deal, and he said. He was asked about, would you consider going back to the Giants? He said, I wouldn't rule out anything.
Yeah, let me see that paycheck.
Everything's on the table. As Slay said, they're going to bring him a bit. What do you say? A big old bag of cash. I don't remember, but he had some colorful way of saying it.
Yeah. As he normally does.
Yeah, as he normally. So, he's going to get paid. My goodness, he's going to get a big contract.
Yeah, and it's very unlikely he's back because of their salary cap situation. So. It's been really special to have 2 cornerbacks like that for an entire season. And we talked about this like before the year started, trying to look at the best cornerback duos in Eagles history. And we said, like, this is talent-wise probably going to be arguably the best, but they're not going to be able to probably have the longevity of some of those other ones.
Right. No, and they did a good job of re-signing all those guys. Well, Troy Vincent came in late, but he was here like seven years, I think. So he played for Miami. I think his second contract came here. So Troy and Bobby, Lito and Sheldon. I mean, that's what you think of, and Asante and Sheldon as well. But it's kind of a shame. They only play 1 year together, most likely, but pretty good year.
Yeah, if they walk away with rings, it'll all be worth it.
It will.
All right, you want to talk to Peter King after the break?
Let's do it. At Nissan, we just made your choice for a new car an easier one than ever with our most exciting and fuel-efficient lineup. The choice is yours. Now get great offers across our full line. Shop your local Nissan store today at nissanusa.com.
Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone in a great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia, Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Opioid addiction is a national public health crisis. The Someone You Know podcast from the Independence Blue Cross Foundation offers inspiring stories that challenge stigma, offer hope, and humanize the disease of addiction. Download the new Season 3 of Someone You Know on all major podcast platforms. Joining us now on the Eagle Eye podcast, our friend from NBC Sports, Peter King. Peter, we saw your Football Morning in America column, the ride-along with Nick Sirianni. It was great stuff. What did you learn about Nick from that experience?
I mean, he's just an average Joe, seriously, who's coaching the Philadelphia Eagles. One of the things I like about the Eagles process in picking coaches is that it's not about somebody's Q rating. You know, it wasn't way back when with Andy Reid. You know, remember back in, Reuben will certainly remember this. It was kind of a widely derided pick. Who the hell is Andy Reid and what is he doing getting this job? And I think it's kind of the same thing with Nick Sirianni. Nobody really knew very much about him. But I think what impresses me, and really one thing I tried to get across in this, is that the two most influential football people in his life are his high school football coach, who was his father, and his college football coach from Mount Union of Ohio, Larry Karras. And, you know, I think sometimes we think of, and this is a weird way to put this, we think that football is about the Sabins and, you know, Clemson and Ohio State and Michigan, and that's where the great coaches get birthed. 18 coaches in the NFL, 18 out of 30 as we record this, because Arizona and Indianapolis don't have coaches right now. 18 out of 30 were birthed somewhere between the NAIA and the Mid-American Conference. So, I mean, there's so much small college football, and I think Nick Sirianni is the perfect illustration of how great high school football is and small college football is in this country. Because look, are Jeff Lurie and Howie Roseman going to entrust this franchise to some guy from Mount Union if he doesn't know his stuff incredibly well? And I also think it's a tribute to the way the Eagles interview with those massive 10, 12, 14-hour interviews. I remember a couple of years ago when Sirianni got the job, the next guy who was going to be interviewed was Brandon Staley. And Brandon Staley, on that Sunday night, he was going to fly out either Sunday night or Monday morning from L.A. to Miami or somewhere in Florida to meet with Howie Roseman and Jeff Lurie. And I remember after he got the job, the Charger job, on that Sunday, he said, "Man, I am so grateful. I got nothing left in my tank." You know, he had a playoff game that they lost Saturday in Green Bay, and then he had an all-day interview with the Chargers on Sunday. And if he didn't get the job, he was going to get on a plane and fly across the country to meet with Roseman and Lurie. And he just said, "I got nothing left." And their interview is an all-day sucker. I don't know how I'd survive that. But anyway, they do a good job, I think, of really separating the wheat from the chaff when they do their interviews.
When you mentioned Howie Roseman, and when you look at everything that's transpired from when he was hired as general manager in 2010 to getting demoted for Chip in 2015 to coming back, putting together two separate Super Bowl rosters with different coaches and different quarterbacks in a 6-year span. Put his accomplishments in perspective if you can.
I mean, I think what he has done is just unbelievable. How in the world are the Philadelphia Eagles with a new coach, a new quarterback, so many new pieces of their puzzle, all new skill pieces, and mostly new everywhere else? It's amazing. You look at Brandon Graham, you look at Fletcher Cox, Lane Johnson. There are just very, very few guys. And I mean, Howie Roseman, and here's the thing. Howie is one of these guys who understands that when you work in Philadelphia, you are on the edge of a sword an awful lot of your life. And it's going to be basically, sometimes I call it the WIPization of your life and your job. Because if you do something that people don't like, and let's take the Jalen Hurts thing, for example. So they picked Jalen Hurts in 20 in late in the second round. And sorry about that. So when they picked Jalen Hurts, I remember my first thought was, that's a brilliant pick. The reason I love the pick is not because I thought that they were picking somebody to replace Carson Wentz. They were picking somebody who could be a change-up, backup quarterback for Wentz, particularly, and he was going to cost about 1/10 of what Nick Foles cost. So, I mean, I didn't understand the hue and cry about it, but Reuben, you remember, he got just absolutely roasted for picking a quarterback. And what are you doing? And, I mean, look, this is a 6-hour podcast, not a short podcast, but I will always think that the beginning of the downfall, and look, I shouldn't say the beginning, but a big part of the downfall of Carson Wentz is that, and let's compare something. When the New England Patriots take Jimmy Garoppolo in the second round, whatever year that was, 2014, whatever year it was, Tom Brady said, F this guy. He has never taken my job. And Carson Wentz said, oh, these guys, how could they do this? And he got mad at the circumstances. Have some guts and steal your job and keep this guy on the bench. Carson Wentz, if you're so good, show him that you're never going to get a sniff of this job. Instead, he reacted, I think, childishly, and so, but anyway, and look, that cannot be a reason why you either pick or don't pick a guy, because you don't want to alienate your starting quarterback. If he's going to be alienated and go nuts for that, and it's going to affect his performance, get him out. And I just think Howie has understood what has been needed all the way up to, James Bradberry, to me, that he is one of the underrated free agent signings in recent years. And, he turned into, he's one of my all-pro corners. He turned into a gigantic signing for them. And I think the one other thing about Howie, he understands that when you have a job to do in putting together a football team, every year kind of is a snowflake. Every year is different. And you have to recreate a team, a good big chunks of your team every single year. So I don't know what he has planned for this coming off season, but you're not going to be able to keep everybody you want to keep, and you're not going to be able to get everybody out on the free agent market. So I think he understands that.
Peter, so much of what we're talking about is big picture, and Jeff Lurie really prides himself on doing things differently than other organizations. If you can kind of take a broader look at that, what has made that strategy so effective for the Eagles, and how different is their process for a lot of these things than some other teams?
I think all you have to do is look at fourth down. that says everything about this franchise. I'm not sure that Doug Peterson, left to his own devices, would have become Riverboat Doug. Okay. And I think he had, and it isn't that he was drag kicking and screaming into being, some fourth down, go for it maniac. He realized that it's just smart. And it is just smart when you think about it. And it's just like when you look at the championship game and you look at the 2 times that that you could argue, well, maybe they shouldn't have gone for it on fourth down. And look, even if the Devontae Adams catch is ruled a no catch and they give up the ball at whatever yard line it was, big deal. I think Nick Sirianni realized, with the help of, some real advanced analytics, that it's smart to be a 4-down team instead of a 3-down team, especially if you have a quarterback who moves the way this quarterback does, especially if you have 3 weapons like Goddard and Smith and Brown who can really open up the field for you. So I don't know. I think that kind of symbolizes what this team is, which is, let's take advantage of what smart people know and can teach us about the sport of football.
Got to ask you about Jalen Hurts. Have you ever seen a guy improve as a passer as much as he has?
What he reminds me of a little bit is Josh Allen, not mechanically, but remember when Josh Allen came out of Wyoming and he completed, 57, 50, I don't even remember, but it was in the 50s. And then like his second and third year in the NFL, all of a sudden, Brian Dable and his off-season guy, Jordan Palmer, Carson's brother, who is like a quarterback mechanics guy, they had him. He now is a really efficient thrower of the football. And look, Jalen Hurts has done a lot in his off seasons to get better mechanically and get better as a thrower. And I think it helps him. He's got an excellent quarterback coach who is going to be a head coach in this league. He's got an excellent offensive coordinator who's going to be a head coach in this league. And I just think right now, when you look at the resources that he has at his disposal, it should be it's laudable that he's a lot better and a lot more efficient than maybe we saw him, especially going back to Alabama. But it's laudable that he is a better thrower of the quarterback. And I also think this, Reuben, and I asked him this early in the year after the Jacksonville game. I said, so this is the first year, I believe, in your last 7 years of your life that you've had the same offense and the same coach with that offense 2 years in a row. And you know what he said? He said one of the most mature things. I was expecting him to say, yeah, this has been incredibly important for me to finally get in one system and to be able to think like Shane Steichen thinks and to be able to do stuff the same way 2 years in a row. It's a comfort thing for me. And he goes, and I'm paraphrasing certainly about this, but his whole point to me was, I don't think it's that bad that I had all these various coaches. I got a great advantage and a great base of knowledge, from some incredible coaches. When you think about it, just think that, he has the overlord of like Nick Saban, learning about the game itself. And then he's got some other smart offensive people, all varying guys like Mike Loxley and Jake Peets and a bunch of guys. And then he goes, and obviously he's got Lincoln Riley. And then in the NFL, he walks in and it's Doug Peterson, who's been a Super Bowl winning coach. Instead of saying, yeah, man, it has been mayhem, he goes, I think it's been good for me. And, that is one of the things about Jalen Hurts that is so cool. He does not ever look at the glass as half empty. And I just think, and look, I've talked to him for a total of 25 minutes in my life, so I do not know Jalen Hurts. But what I see about him, I really, really like a lot.
Peter, we appreciate it. Thanks for your time, and have a good week.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate being with you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, as always, to Peter King. I thought that was some pretty good insight from him.
Yeah, he's a trip. And I've said this before, I think, when we had him on the podcast, but I owe so much to Peter for giving me a chance to, be a part of that SI.com website back in my newspaper days. And I'm always be grateful to him. Always fun to have him on.
I love talking to some national guys, especially with perspective like he has, because he can put what the Eagles are doing into perspective. I love those questions about like their process and how it's different from other teams.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's great because he always has a fresh look at things. He's I think sometimes when you're around the team every day, you get into this. You make some assumptions and but he looks at things. Always looks at things in a fresh way. It's fun to have him.
One of my favorite things he said was about Doug Peterson. He's like, he probably doesn't. He called him Riverboat Doug.
Yeah,
I that's an interesting take because he's known now as this aggressive guy. If he wasn't the head coach of an organization that really stresses being aggressive, would he be that? I think to a certain extent, but maybe not what he's become. Like once you see the success of it and you see the reason, like the why behind all that, it makes it easier. And I think the same goes with Nick, who honestly, like kind of leaned a little conservative last year at times.
Yeah, I think some of that's Shane. I also think Doug started being aggressive in 2016 out of necessity.
Yeah, a little bit.
I think, and then he saw that it was working, and I think he just kind of like let's kind of keep doing that.
But it's definitely a directive from the top.
So. Yeah,
yeah. It's
not like they're coming down saying go for it on this play.
Yeah, but it's like this is the deal in the offseason. It's like these are what the numbers say. So when you're in this situation, not telling you have to do it, but these are what the numbers say, and we care about the numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And it's worked out for them.
Yeah.
Speaking of numbers. Some over-unders here from Kenny Gainwell on PointsBet. We're kind of going through some player props each day. Kenny Gainwell, who's become playoff Kenny in these playoffs, receiving yards 10.5, and I'll give you the rushing yards 20.5.
Over and over.
Over on both.
Over on both.
You got Kenny Gainwell MVP, Super Bowl 57.
Kenny Gainwell has 160 scrimmage yards in 2 playoff games.
Yeah, but some of that is late when Miles has been taken out.
Some of it. But I think he's going to be a part of the offense Sunday.
I feel really good about the receiving yards because if they end up in a 2-minute situation,
if there's a 3rd and 13, he's getting the ball and he's going to get.
Yeah, I feel
10 to 15 yards.
The rushing yards for me is a little trickier than the receiving yards.
Yeah, I just like the over. I think he's going to be a big part, and it's nothing against Miles. I think Miles will be a big part of the game plan too. But Kenny Gainwell is having a kind of a real breakout, postseason.
Absolutely. Now, I think some of that is the nature of these games and Miles being banged up.
But I think that was more of an opportunity, and now they're like, oh, look what he's doing.
Do you think that's a good question? So, do you think he's earned a significantly expanded role, even if Miles is much closer to 100%?
I think so.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's my sense, and. I think Miles is pretty close to healthy. I think they're being careful with him, which is smart. You're not going to keep using him if you don't need him. But I think Kenny Gainwell is at the point now where they see him as a weapon, not just as a fallback.
You still thinking he could be a number 1 running back?
I think so.
Yeah,
I do.
I think he could out of necessity. I'm still not there with that all the time.
I mean, not many people can. So there's not a lot of guys who do it year after year. So I don't know. I think he's gotten bigger and stronger.
Oh, definitely.
And I think
told me that last week.
Talked to him, right?
He's like he's over two. He came in the league at like 190. I think he's listed at 200. He says he's like kind of around 205 now.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that
matters a lot.
Yeah.
It's not like the way I put on weight. It's the way an NFL player puts on weight.
Yeah. I think he looked. Yeah. I like these overs, and I could be totally off, but I kind of have a hunch we're going to see him get some touches.
That'll be a lot of fun. It's time to get your swagger back with PointsBet Sportsbook. PointsBet, your move. Rube, the last thing here, we had a chance to talk to Nick Sirianni, and shocker here, his message to the team is about trying to limit distractions and do what they've done all season.
Yeah, and I think they're trying to get the players in a comfort zone where they can replicate the day and replicate the routine, lifting at the same time, meetings at the same time, and it's incredible what they do. Now we don't go in this part of the building of the hotel, but they create meeting rooms, film rooms, and they're not just using the hotel like health center to lift. I mean, they truck in or they rent, or I don't know how they do it, but they have the same facilities available here that they have at home. If Jack Stoll decides that at 4:00 he wants to get in a lift, or if he'll go and get in a lift and do the same lift that he does at home. If Sue Opeta decides he wants to watch film of the Chiefs defensive front, well, he's on the practice squad, right?
Yeah, but he's still allowed.
He's still allowed. Yeah, but and he could be on the roster by the end of the week. He can just go into a film. So that's the meeting rooms. Everything is the positional meeting rooms. They have recreated as much as possible because it's one thing to say stick to your process, stick to your routine, but if you don't have the facilities to do that, you can't do it. So I think they've done a great job of recreating what they have at the NovaCare.
Yeah, and I think one of the toughest parts of that is the medical side of it. But I talked to Avonte Maddox about that because he's obviously gone through extensive treatment for that toe to get it ready for game day. And he's like, I said, is it tougher to be on that schedule here and to get the same treatment? He said, no, like we really have everything here that we have back in Philly. It's in a different area, obviously. Yeah. But he said like it's the exact same. And it needs to be. I mean, this is $1 billion league. So
they actually took the entire NovaCare complex and trucked it here. It's behind
They could probably afford that. They could probably figure out a way to do it.
They could. The NFL has some money.
Anything else from Nick that stood out to you?
No. By the way, we're in Radio Row. I don't know how much you can see back there, but it's how many tables are there? About 400.
Yeah, it's massive. It was funny. We came here the first day, and we're the only ones in here. And we're like, no, there'll be people here later, and there finally are. It's bustling down here.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We're at the Phoenix Convention Center in the basement. Not basement, but in the lower level. It's not a basement.
It's not a basement.
There's not a boiler over there. There's a washer and a dryer over there. Anyway.
All right.
I'll shut up now.
Thank you. And I'll tell you that if you enjoy the Eagle Eye Podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button, subscribe there as well.
Let's do a podcast tomorrow.
That's a good idea. Tomorrow, and then the next day, and the next day, and the next day. Thank you to Peter King for joining us. We appreciate his time. That's it for Reuben. I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.